Hello, welcome to the Daily News Ukraine channel. Today is January 13th and our daily review of news about Ukraine. President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky has discussed with his Slovak counterpart Zuzana Chaputova defense cooperation. President Zelensky wrote this on Twitter, Ukrinform reports. Talked about further Ukraine-Slovakia defense cooperation with President of Slovakia Zuzana Chaputova. Invited to join the implementation of the peace formula, Zelensky wrote. The presidents also discussed joint international events. Read also, Zelensky addresses solemn session of Lithuania's Seimas as reported by Ukrinform. On November 15, 2022, President Volodymyr Zelensky presented the 10-step peace formula at the G20 summit. The Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine has prematurely terminated the powers of MPs Viktor Medvedchuk, Andriy Derkach, Taras Kozak and Renat Kuzmin. This was announced by MP Yaroslav Zelezniak on Telegram, Ukrinform reports. Due to the loss of citizenship, the Rada terminated mandates of Viktor Medvedchuk 320 votes edition. 4. Taras Kozak 317-4, Andriy Derkach 314-4. Renat Kuzmin 319-4, Zelezniak wrote. As Ukrinform reported, on January 10, President Volodymyr Zelensky stripped Viktor Medvedchuk, Taras Kozak and Renat Kuzmin, the Ukrainian MPs from the former opposition platform, For Life party, as well as non-affiliate MP Andriy Derkach of their Ukrainian citizenship. On January 11, the Verkhovna Rada received a president's decree on the termination of their Ukrainian citizenship. On the morning of January 12, First Deputy Speaker of the Verkhovna Rada Alexander Korniyenko announced that the parliament would prematurely terminate the powers of MPs Medvedchuk, Derkach, Kozak and Kuzmin at the next session. Medvedchuk, Kozak, Derkach and Kuzmin have been charged with high treason. The Russian forces launched S-300 missiles on the city of Zaporizhzhia the night before. The National Police's main department in Zaporizhzhia region said this in a statement, Ukrinform reports. In the early hours of January 12, powerful explosions rocked city. The occupiers struck a private residential sector in one of the districts of Zaporizhzhia. A missile hit a land plot on the territory of a private house, the report says. It is noted that the police found an unexploded part and fragments of missiles. Special units of the National Police and State Emergency Service eliminated the aftermath of missile attacks. One house suffered significant destruction, and about 20 others were damaged. The Palahi district also came under enemy shelling yesterday. As a result of the shelling of Kuleba, several houses caught fire. A 73-year-old local resident was killed in the attack. In total, over the past day, the police registered about 30 reports about damage to property. Russian forces attacked Zaporizhzhia, Kuleba, Orikhiv, Zeleznyk, Novodanilivka, Novoandrivka, Dorozhnyenka, Poltavka, Malotokmachka, Malinivka, Bilohirya, Cherniv, Olhivsk, Shevchenka, Sherbaki, Stepova, and Kamyansk. According to the collected materials, investigators of the Security Service of Ukraine opened criminal proceedings under Part 1 and Part 2 of Article 438, Violation of Laws and Customs of War, of the Criminal Code of Ukraine. Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine Dmytro Kuleba and Minister of Enterprise and Mate of Italy Adolfo Urso have discussed defense assistance, the restoration of energy infrastructure of Ukraine, and participation of Italian industry in post-war recovery. Kuleba wrote this on Twitter following a meeting, Ukrinform reports. I met with Adolfo_Urso to discuss further Italian defense assistance to Ukraine, the restoration of Ukraine's energy infrastructure, and ways for Italian industry and businesses to take part in Ukraine's post-war recovery. Grateful to Italy for its firm and continued support. pic.twitter.com/zbm6m0 versus s4, Dmytro Kuleba, at Dmytro Kuleba, January 12, 2023. I met with Adolfo Urso to discuss further Italian defense assistance to Ukraine, the restoration of Ukraine's energy infrastructure, and ways for Italian industry and businesses to take part in Ukraine's post-war recovery. Grateful to Italy for its firm and continued support, Kuleba wrote. Read also, Italy preparing Ukraine restoration conference as reported by Ukrinform. Head of the Office of the President of Ukraine Andriy Yermak on January 13 held a meeting with the Italian delegation led by Minister of Enterprise and Mate of Italy Adolfo Urso. Croatian Prime Minister Andrej Plenković has said Croatia will continue to provide military assistance to Ukraine. He stated this at a meeting with Estonian Prime Minister Kaja Kallas in Tallinn, Ukrinform reports, referring to ERR. We do not publicize what we provide to Ukrainians, but it is a substantial military aid in line with what Ukrainians expect from their allies and partners. And we shall continue to do so, he said. Plenković also noted that unfortunately, some of the Croatian MPs failed to make the right historic choices on this situation when it was a simple choice between good and bad. As Ukrinform reported, Prime Minister of Estonia Kaja Kallas at the meeting also emphasized that more weapons must be provided to Ukraine. She added that it is important to lower the price ceiling for Russian oil and to continue searching for a way to use frozen Russian assets to support Ukraine. On December 16, the Croatian parliament rejected a proposal for Croatia to join an EU mission in support of the Ukrainian military, UMM. Photo, Regnum I. In Donetsk region, the enemy has not stopped shelling the entire front line since last night. One person was killed and another one was injured as a result of the attacks. Pavlo Kirilenko, governor of the Donetsk Regional Military Administration, wrote this on Telegram, Ukrinform reports. Script async src equals https://telegram.org/js/telegram widget.js 21 data telegram post equals Pavlo Kirilenko _nota/6262 data width equals 100%/script in the Donetsk direction. Shelling of the Kurakov community continues. 3 houses were damaged in Kurakov, and an enterprise in Kurakivka. There were isolated attacks on Avdiivka at night, and Grad MLRS and artillery attacks in the morning. The day before, one civilian was killed in the city. A house in Tonenk of the Okaratine community and Maximilianivka of the Marinka community were also damaged, the regional governor wrote. According to him, intense shelling of Soldar and Paraskovivka continues in the Horlivka direction. In the Bakhmut community, one person was injured in Klishchivka, and a house was damaged in Kromov. In Kostantinivka, the enemy hit a building of the former institute. No casualties were reported. In the Volnovaka direction, Volodar and villages of the community came under fire. 3 houses were damaged in Novokrenka, 1 in Bohoyavlenka. There were no casualties. In the Lysychansk direction, more than 30 hits were recorded in Torsky and Zarikna of the Lyman community. It was loud in Siversk and Serebryanka. No one was injured, Kirilenko wrote. As reported, Donetsk region is under constant shelling by Russian troops, and has problems with electricity, heat, and water supply. Photo, Pavlo Kirilenko, I. Russia is trying to create an army of 2 million people. That's according to the website of the main intelligence directorate of the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, Ukrinform reports. According to estimates by Ukraine's military intelligence, the scale of the mobilization measures being carried out by the aggressor country indicates that its leadership plans to create an army with the number of about 2 million people, the report said. According to the intelligence agency, during the first wave of mobilization, 300,000 people were drafted into the Russian armed forces. After a short training, the mobilized are sent to the area of hostilities in Ukraine. Ukraine's intelligence does not rule out that the Russian leadership will announce another wave of mobilization in the coming days. Another 500,000 Russians will join the armed forces, which will allow the terrorist country to create strategic reserves. Preparations for the announcement of the next wave of mobilization in Russia are already underway. At the legislative level, changes regulating mobilization are being made to Russian laws. The active preparation of training centers is also underway. 4 civilians were killed and 8 others injured due to Russia's armed aggression in Ukraine on January 12. According to Ukrinform, deputy head of the office of the President of Ukraine Kirilo Tymoshenko said this on the Telegram messaging app, referring to figures from regional military administrations. According to him, 2 people were killed and 2 others wounded in the Donetsk region, 1 person killed in the Zaporizhzhia region, 1 person injured in the Mykolaiv region, 2 injured in the Kharkiv region, and 1 person was killed and 3 others wounded in the Kherson region. On January 12, the Russian military launched 5 missile strikes on Kostiantynivka, Kramatorsk and Zaporizhzhia. Also, the enemy carried out 52 attacks using MLRS and launched 18 airstrikes. Ukraine has de facto already joined NATO, although it has not formally become a member of the military alliance. Ukrainian Defense Minister Oleksiy Reznikov said this in an interview with the BBC, Ukrinform reports. Ukraine as a country, and the armed forces of Ukraine, became a member of NATO. De facto, not de jure, by law. Because we have weaponry, and the understanding of how to use it. I'm sure that in the near future, we'll become a member of NATO, de jure, he said. Reznikov denied that his comments would be seen as controversial, not only by Russia but, perhaps, by NATO itself, as the alliance has taken steps not to be seen as a party to the conflict. Reznikov also said he was sure Ukraine would receive long-sought weapons, including tanks and fighter jets, as both Ukraine and Russia seem to be preparing for new offensives in the spring. According to him, Russia is losing about 500 to 600 of its soldiers every day across the country. He believed Russia could be trying to gather forces, ammunition and weapons for an offensive from areas it already occupies in the south and east. Spring is the best period to refresh the movement for all sides. We understand they'll be ready to start and, surely, we have to be ready to start, Reznikov said. Reznikov spoke a day after the Russian Defense Ministry replaced the commander of its forces in Ukraine, a surprise announcement that was seen as a sign of a power struggle. Gen Valery Gerasimov, one of the architects of last year's invasion, would return to the post that was being held by Gen Sergei Surovikin, who had been appointed in October. The change, Reznikov said, was a result of the conflict between Mr. Prigozhin and the armed forces of the Russian Federation. Gen Surovikin oversaw the recent brutal attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure that, according to Reznikov, reduced the Russian missile stocks without any results. French-made AMX-10 RC tanks are to be delivered to Ukraine within 2 months. That's according to French Defense Minister Sébastien Lecornu, Ukrinform reports, referring to Sky News. Issuing a statement following talks with his Ukrainian counterpart, Oleksiy Reznikov, Sébastien Lecornu said he is hoping to deliver the tanks by March, the report reads. He also reiterated France's general support for Ukraine in its battle against Russia. Reznikov on Thursday had a phone call with Lecornu and thanked him for support for Ukraine. In early January, President Emmanuel Macron announced France's decision to supply Ukraine with French-made AMX-10 RC light tanks. Today we were talking about those news. Ukraine, Slovakia presidents discuss defense cooperation. Parliament terminates powers of Medvedchuk, Kozak, Derkach and Kuzmin. Enemy strikes Zaporizhzhia with S-300 missiles, police show aftermath of attacks. Kuleba meets with Italian Minister of Enterprise. Croatian PM, we will continue military support for Ukraine. Invaders shelling entire front line in Donetsk region since last night, casualties reported. Russia plans to form army of 2 million soldiers, intelligence. Russians kill 4 civilians in Ukraine in past day. Ukraine is a de facto member of NATO. Reznikov. France hopes to supply Ukraine with AMX-10 RC tanks by March.